Hello everybody, today we're learning how to cover our zips in a very natural looking way, because many people what they do to cover their zips, they use a heavy duty coverage foundation, and that looks a little too much on the face because you can tell that the person is wearing foundation, and I don't like that for makeup. Myself, I like for the makeup to look natural. So if you want to learn how I did this trick, please stay and watch. So I got the camera closer so that you can see my zips there very well. And before starting, I wanted to mention something. I already have applied my base and I have applied my concealer. And I had set my concealer, but only under my eyes and the other side that I put my concealer, except for my forehead, because here on my forehead is where my zips are. So I have not put any powder in there yet. But I did wanted to mention also that, see those two concealers right here? See the difference in colors? The concealer that I use for covering my under eyes and highlighter is this one, which happens to be 2 shades lighter than my regular skin color. But for covering my zips, I like to use a concealer that is 2 shades darker than my skin color. And also, the concealer that I use for covering my zips is a concealer that has a good coverage, but it's also a concealer that is thick, that is not gonna be blending really nicely on your skin, okay? Because if you use that type of concealer, it's really gonna stick to your skin, and that's what we want, having that staying power. So I like to use for covering my zips this one, this concealer that is called Camouflage by Hard Candy. And I really like this concealer. It covers pretty well, and this is very easy to do actually. I'm gonna grab a little and I'm going to put it just a little at the time, only in the areas where I see the zip. See? So I see a zip there, I'm gonna put the concealer there. After I put the concealer in there, now I'm gonna start blending it in, and I'm gonna do a little pat movements, you know, pat, nothing major, because I want the concealer to set in there. I don't want it to move it and rub it and anything else. No, I don't want it to be all over. I just want it to be exactly what it needs to be, which in my case is here, in all this area right here. Okay, now once you apply your dark concealer, you're gonna let it set in for about 3-4 minutes. So me, while my concealer sets in, I like to go ahead and do the rest of my makeup and then come back to finish it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do that, and I'll be right back. Now that some time has passed by and my concealer have had a chance to set in there, I'm gonna go ahead and apply the other concealer. And this other concealer is going to be the one that I use for my under eyes and the rest of my face. Why? Because as you can see, this dark concealer that I put on is gonna be covering my zips, right? But the thing is that it looks dark, and I don't want to look like I have a stain on my face. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my other concealer, the one that is 2 shades lighter, to match the color of my whole face. And the reason why I like to use a concealer that is darker than my skin tone is because the zips, they always have some pigmentation, right? Some extra color there, whether they're red or brown looking or whatever color they are. So if you use a darker color of concealer, it's gonna cover that zip totally. Versus if you use a concealer that is the same color of your skin, even if you have a good concealer that has good coverage, it will cover, but still you will see like a shadow coming through, and that's what you want to avoid. So that's why I like to use a dark concealer first, and then in order not to have the stain right there, I go and put the lighter concealer on top and try to match all the colors together. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. So I'm going to start patting it to try to blend it. And you wanna have a really light hand with this. Take your time, don't hurry up, because you might mess it up, so be very careful. Be very, very, very careful. And just pat, little small pats is going to do the job for you. And once you see that you pretty much match all the colors, go all around that area to make sure that everything looks nice and well integrated together. That it doesn't look like, oh, she got a ton of concealer right there in there and still I can see a little different between one color or the other. No, you don't want that. That's why I do recommend you to go all around the edges to make sure everything looks the same. Everything looks well blended. And once you have done that, you can go ahead and set your concealer. Okay, so that's how we cover our acne marks or our sips. Something that I do wanted to mention is when you put the dark concealer on and then you blend it, and then you put that lighter concealer on top of it and then you blend it. When you do that, imagine that the sip is here and you pat to blend it in, then also blend around it. Not only in the spot that you put the concealer on, but also around it, because that way you are going to make sure to integrate the colors to make so that everything looks one single color. And also when you want to conceal your sips, make sure that you blend it in really nicely. Make sure that everything looks well blended. And another thing that I wanted to mention is when you apply the powder afterward, it's okay, you can use a sponge like I did, or you can use a brush, that's fine. But if you are going to use a brush to apply powder, make sure you don't sweep. You want to pat the color. You don't want to sweep it, because then if you do that, you're gonna take out the concealer that you put on there, and you don't want to do that. So just pat. So for example, if you're going to contour, right, and let's imagine that you had a sip right there and you already put your concealer and everything else, and then you're going to contour and you need to blend like that. Don't do that. Just pick up some of the product and very lightly, you know, be light-handed, and then pick up the product and then pat it. One thing that I do recommend you, so that you don't make a mistake, choose a contouring shape that is not too dark. So even so, let's imagine you put too much color, it's not gonna look too much, because since it's a light color to start with, it's not gonna look like, oh, you put a ton of color in there and dark color and now you don't know how to make it look natural. So that will be something that you can try doing. Just use a lighter contouring. Now if you're going to use let's imagine that you have your sip where you put your blush, the same thing applies. Just pat, don't sweep, because then you're going to erase it. Okay, just pat, but be very light-handed. Just pat, and that would be it. Okay, so that's it. I hope that you learn how to cover your zips. I see myself that is a good trick to know because everybody gets zips here and there. So thank you very much for being here with me. If you like the video, please like it and subscribe. And if you have anything to say to me, just write on the comments so I can read it. Thank you very much again and see you next time. Bye.